You've probably heard about the G-spot your whole life, but here's the truth. Most men don't actually know where it is, what it does, or why it matters. And that lack of knowledge, it's costing you more than you think. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Prime Health Lab, the channel where we talk about real health, real science, and real results. Today, we're diving into female anatomy in a way most men never learned, honestly, clearly, and without the awkwardness. Because understanding how her body works doesn't just make you a better partner, it makes you more confident, more connected, and frankly, more respected. If this is your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We drop new content every week to help you level up in every area of your life. All right, let's get into it. Look, this isn't just about sex. Let's get that straight right now. Understanding female anatomy is about respect, communication, and emotional intelligence. Most guys grow up with fragments of information, locker room talk, maybe some outdated health class diagram, and a whole lot of guessing. And that creates a gap, not just in knowledge, but in connection. When you actually understand how a woman's body works, you show up differently. You're more present, you're more intentional, and you're not fumbling around hoping something works. Here's the thing, women's bodies are complex, and that's not a bad thing. It's actually beautiful. But complexity requires curiosity. It requires you to learn, to ask questions, and to be humble enough to admit you don't know everything. A lot of guys avoid this topic because they think it makes them look weak or inexperienced. But the opposite is true. The men who take the time to understand female anatomy are the ones who stand out. They're the ones women trust. They're the ones who build deeper intimacy, not just physically, but emotionally. And let's be real, most of the confusion starts because we're never taught this stuff properly. We live in a world where there's more information than ever, but somehow basic anatomy still feels taboo. So men end up relying on myths, assumptions, or worse, content that's more about performance than partnership. That's not what this is. This is about education. This is about giving you the tools to understand her body the way you'd want her to understand yours. With care, with accuracy, and with respect. Now, when we talk about pleasure zones, we're not just talking about one magic button. The female body has multiple areas that respond to touch, pressure, and stimulation in different ways. And every woman is different. That's key. What works for one person might not work for another, and that's completely normal. But there are some universal truths, some anatomy basics that every man should know. And that starts with understanding what these areas are, where they're located, and why they matter. So let's break it down, step by step, without the mystery or the myth. All right, let's talk about the G-spot. This is probably the most talked about and least understood part of female anatomy. You've heard the name. You've probably seen it referenced in movies, magazines, or late-night conversations. But here's what most guys don't know. The G-spot isn't a button. It's not a single spot you press and suddenly everything changes. It's actually an area, and it's part of a much larger network of sensitive tissue. So what is it really? The G-spot, named after a German gynecologist named Ernst Grafenberg, is located on the front wall of the vagina, about 2 to 3 inches inside. If you're facing her, it's on the upper side, toward her belly button. The tissue there feels slightly different, a little rougher or ridged compared to the surrounding area. Some people describe it as feeling like the roof of your mouth. But here's the important part. That area is sensitive because it's connected to the internal structure of the clitoris. Yeah, you heard that right. The clitoris isn't just the small visible part on the outside. It's actually a much larger organ with roots that extend internally, and the G-spot area is where some of those nerve endings are concentrated. Now, why does this matter? Because when that area is stimulated, it can create a different kind of sensation compared to external touch. Some women describe it as deeper, more intense, or more full-bodied. But here's the catch. Not every woman enjoys G-spot stimulation, and that's completely okay. Some find it uncomfortable, some feel nothing at all, some love it, and all of those responses are normal. That's why communication is everything. You can't assume. You can't just go in with a technique you read online and expect it to work. You have to pay attention, ask questions, and adjust based on her feedback. Let's also clear up a myth. The idea that every woman can or should have a G-spot orgasm is flat out wrong. Orgasms come in many forms, and they're influenced by biology, mood, stress levels, connection, and a whole bunch of other factors. Putting pressure on yourself or her to achieve a specific type of orgasm misses the entire point. The goal isn't to check a box. The goal is to explore, connect, and create an experience where she feels safe, respected, and heard. That's what makes the difference. So how do you actually approach this? First, take your time. Rushing is the fastest way to ruin the experience. Start with external touch, build arousal, and let her body respond naturally. When you do explore internally, use a come-hither motion with your fingers, applying gentle but firm pressure toward the front wall. Pay attention to her reactions. Does she lean into it? Does she tense up? Does she guide you somewhere else? All of that is information. And by the way, this isn't a one-time thing. What feels good one day might not feel good the next. Hormones, stress, fatigue, all of it plays a role. So stay flexible, stay curious, and most importantly, stay connected. One more thing. Some guys get intimidated by this topic because they think it reflects on their skills or their experience. But that's the wrong mindset. Learning about her body isn't a test you pass or fail. It's an ongoing conversation. It's a partnership. And the men who approach it that way, who stay humble and keep learning, are the ones who build the kind of intimacy that lasts. So don't overthink it. Don't stress about it. Just show up with intention, listen, and be willing to learn. Now let's zoom out, because focusing only on the G-spot would be doing you and her a disservice. The female body has multiple pleasure zones, and understanding all of them gives you a much fuller picture of how arousal and intimacy actually work. This isn't about memorizing a map. It's about recognizing that her body is designed to experience pleasure in many different ways. And your job is to explore that with curiosity and respect. Let's start with the clitoris, because this is where most female pleasure actually begins. The clitoris has over 8,000 nerve endings, which is more than any other part of the human body, male or female. That small external part you can see is just the tip. The full structure extends internally in a wishbone shape, wrapping around the vaginal canal. That's why different types of touch, pressure, and stimulation can all feel good in different ways. Some women prefer direct touch, others find it too intense and prefer stimulation around it or through the hood. Again, every woman is different, and the only way to know what works is through communication and attention. Then there's the cervix, which is located at the very back of the vaginal canal. This one's tricky because it can be a source of pleasure for some women and discomfort for others. Deep penetration that puts pressure on the cervix can feel incredibly intense, but if it's too forceful or mistimed, it can also be painful. The key here is depth awareness and pacing. If she's pulling back or wincing, you're going too deep or too fast. If she's pushing into you or moaning in a way that sounds different, that might be a sign she's enjoying it. But you have to read her body, not just assume. The labia, both the inner and outer folds, are also highly sensitive. Light touch, kissing, or gentle stimulation here can build arousal and create anticipation. A lot of guys skip over this area entirely, but it's packed with nerve endings and can be a huge part of foreplay. The same goes for the perineum, the area between the vaginal opening and the anus. It's often overlooked, but gentle pressure or massage here can feel really good because of the nerve density in that region. And let's not forget the entire pelvic region. The inner thighs, the lower abdomen, the hips, these areas are all connected to arousal. Touch doesn't have to be focused on one spot. In fact, varying your touch, moving between areas, and building sensations slowly is often what makes the experience feel connected and full body rather than mechanical or rushed. Here's the bigger truth, though. Anatomy is only part of the equation. You can know exactly where everything is and still miss the mark if you're not present, if you're not listening, or if you're more focused on your own performance than her experience. Women respond to emotional safety just as much as physical touch. That means slowing down. That means checking in. That means creating an environment where she feels comfortable expressing what she likes, what she doesn't, and what she wants to explore. One of the biggest mistakes men make is treating intimacy like a script. They think if they do A, then B, then C, it'll lead to D. But that's not how bodies work. Arousal isn't linear. It's influenced by her mental state, her stress levels, how connected she feels to you, how much trust is in the room. You could do everything right technically and still have it fall flat if the emotional foundation isn't there. On the flip side, you could be less experienced but deeply attentive, and that presence will create a better experience every single time. So what's the takeaway here? Learn the anatomy, yes. Understand where things are and how they work, but don't stop there. Pay attention to her. Ask questions. Create space for her to guide you. And remember that intimacy is a practice, not a destination. The men who approach it with humility, curiosity, and respect are the ones who build real connection. Not just in the bedroom, but in every part of the relationship. All right, guys, that's the breakdown. Female anatomy isn't some unsolvable mystery. It's knowable, it's learnable. And when you take the time to understand it, you don't just become a better partner, you become a more confident, more connected man. So take what you learned here today and put it into practice, not as a performance, but as a conversation, not as a checklist, but as an exploration. And remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's presence. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor and hit that like button. Share it with a friend who might need to hear this. And if you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe now because we're just getting started. Every week, we're dropping content that helps you level up in health, relationships, and life. Drop a comment below and let me know what topic you want us to cover next. I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong, stay curious, and keep leveling up.
Prime Health Lab is dedicated to men's internal health. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.